from brambleberry.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. Very excited about what I'm going to show you how to make. This is an amazing honey and oat cream. Now, we call it a cream because of its consistency. First of all, we're using beeswax in there and shea butter. So the consistency ends up being a little bit thicker than something than say you'd put in a pump, for example. However, it has fantastic protective abilities because of that beeswax and wonderful moisturizing qualities thanks to the shea butter. In addition to those ingredients, we've also been focusing on some of Brambleberry's really cool and innovative skincare ingredients, like our Honeyquat, our Colloidal oatmeal, and one of our very cool extracts. One of the stars of this cream is the colloidal oatmeal. And colloidal oatmeal is essential oats that have been ground very, very, very finely, very smoothly down. So you'll see this in a lot of skin soothing recipes for like when you see people doing after bug bite skincare, for example, or in the store where you see people selling things for, say, chicken pox relief and that type of thing. You'll see colloidal oatmeal is very commonly used. In this recipe, we add it at the very end and we stick blend it in to make sure it's fully distributed throughout the cream. When we make cream, since it's a science, we want to make sure that we're working in a clean kitchen environment. And so everything in this kitchen has been disinfected with a 5% bleach water solution, including all of our utensils. Very important to do to make sure there's no microbial growth or mold or bacteria that get into your product before you start making it. When you're making lotions and creams, it's important that your emulsifying waxes and your beeswaxes have a warm environment that you end up adding them into. So the first thing I'm going to do is heat up my water, and this is distilled water. So heat up my distilled water to about 160 degrees. My water is just about 165 right now, so now I'm going to work on my oil phase. I'm going to set this aside and always use a digital scale. Remember, this is a science. And so I'm going to be measuring out my sweet almond oil. And in lotions, sweet almond oil is a fantastic ingredient. It's very lightweight, and so it doesn't feel too heavy on the skin. And since we already have a fair amount of heavy ingredients in this recipe with our beeswax and our shea butter, having some light carrier oils is really a good idea. This beeswax smells so good, and we're only using it in just a 2% ingredient additive here. So it's really not that much, but it is definitely enough to give this some thickness and some weight and heft, and again, make this a very protective product. And please note that if you were making this for sale, you would be wearing a hairnet, and you'd definitely be using gloves at this moment. This is my emulsifying wax, and emulsifying wax is a mix of ingredients that help to bind the water and the oil together, because water and oil together don't naturally bind, and so this is the medium that keeps them together. Now I'm going to pop this in the microwave, and just remember that beeswax with that 165 to 170 degree melt point is going to take a little bit longer to melt down than all the other things, so you might end up pulling this out, stirring it a little bit just to make sure the beeswax melts down evenly. Now that my oils and waxes are melted and my water is still heated, it's time to combine these. I'm using a Brambleberry stick blender, but there's not going to be a lot of liquid total in here, so I'm just going to pulse that stick blender. So something to keep in mind when you're making this recipe, it's a fairly small recipe. I love to see that emulsification right away. Wow, it is so cool. That said, we do need to stick blend to ensure everything stays fully emulsified and really binds together well. I'm just going to check my temperatures really quickly. Since we're working with extracts and we're working with Optifen, we want to make sure that our temperatures are within the range that won't ruin or degrade any of those ingredients. My temperature is right about 138, so that is low enough that I can add my preservative without having any degradation of my preservative efficiency, my extracts, and my Honeyquat. The first ingredient I'm going to add to my cool down phase is the colloidal oatmeal, and that's because it's a little bit clumpy, and I just want to make sure I stick blend out any of the clumps. And the second ingredient I'm going to be adding to this cool down phase is my Honeyquat. And the Honeyquat is a really interesting ingredient. It's a humectant similar to glycerin, but it's derived from honey, which is really cool. So it helps to draw moisture to the skin and keep your skin feeling supple and moist. The next ingredient I'm going to add to this cool down phase is our chamomile extract. And this is oil based, and I'm using it in here because it's known to be rather soothing for your skin, but you could of course use a different extract if you wanted to. I love extracts because they really do allow you to customize your creams and your lotions. The preservative system I've chosen for this honey and oat cream is our Optifen. And I really like to use Optifen because it's a really fantastic broad spectrum preservative. It does work best at temperatures below 170. So that's one of the reasons that I was so serious about really making sure that my temperatures were below 170, because if you add a preservative system above the temperature range it's specified in, and it starts to break down and it won't work as well. And we use those preservative systems to ensure that no mold grows, no bacteria grows, and that our products are safe for everyone to use. So that temperature range is very important. And finally, the fragrance that I chose for this is very sweet. It's from Brambleberry's Lush Honey collection, and it is the lemon honey. And like you would expect, it does smell like lemons, it does smell like honey, but you guys, it also has some vanilla notes, some beautiful musk, some nougat notes, and really adds a nice heady depth to this. Now in cold processed soap, it goes brown, but in our lotions, it's gonna stay a beautiful ivory color. And I'm only using 6 milliliters, and that is because for this cream, I want it to smell good, but I don't want it to be a perfume that scents the way 5 feet before I get into a room. The last step is now just to stick blend all of this together. So I immerse my stick blender, burp it on the bottom, and then turn it on in short bursts. Now that this is fully emulsified in, the last thing to do is simply pour it into our containers. I'm using these bale jars from Brambleberry because again, this is a very thick cream, and so you really cannot use a pump with it because it will pretty much break all the pumps. You notice this is pouring in very, very, very thinly, whereas you see the finished product, you're like, well, but that's pretty thick. What's going on? This actually thickens upon standing. So something to keep in mind when you're pouring this in. Another thing to keep in mind is you want to make sure that you let these cool with the caps open. So why is that? The reason you let them cool with the caps open is when they start evaporating their heat off, extra moisture can gather on the surface of the lid and then drip back down into the bulk of the lotion or the cream. Now you have a preservative system in there, so why is this a big deal? It's a big deal because the preservative system works under normal conditions, and pools of water sitting in your lotion or cream isn't really a normal condition. So that's the reason that you want to let these sit open just for a little bit to make sure they're fully cooled and not evaporating out any moisture. So let these sit for a couple hours, cap them. They make great gifts. If you want to use this as a product, as a base to sell, of course do that in a clean kitchen environment. And you guys, if you liked this video, thumbs up it, subscribe to the channel, and when you're posting about your creations, this or anything you're making using Brambleberry products, I love to see it. Please hashtag it Bramble on all the social channels so I can get inspired, my team can get inspired, and more importantly, our community of makers can get inspired. Until next time, you guys, keep being creative.